So back in 2021, my idea was to share some of advanced calculus questions on YouTube. At the time, the teachings were all happening online. Based on the feedback I received, I realized that people actually do want even more advanced topics. So I started maybe talking about the topic of my thesis, which was area and coarea formulas. But to do so, of course, I needed the very basics called Hausdorff measures, which have turned out to be one of the most popular playlists at Young Measure. Um, Especially the very first few videos where I intuitively explain what Hausdorff measures are and how they're defined. And once we were done with that, I went over uh, all details basically of area formula. This is a very general version of surface integrals and surface area formulas of calculus. It is true for Lipschitz functions, whose differentiability even is a deep theorem. And I went over details of how this is proved. And then naturally we followed with coarea formula, which is a huge generalization of Fubini's theorem, integration in spherical coordinates, and basically every type of foliation and then integration over fiber type of theorem. This is a really important theorem in analysis and geometry. And then we followed with study of curves, rect-Weibull curves, curves with finite length, arc length parameterization. So the interesting fact is that they do make sense in any metric space. Everything we do with curves in Rn can be done in the very abstract setting of metric spaces, covering many details, including what even arc length parameterization means, why it always exists. And then we talked about certain properties of spaces based on behavior of curves. And then we dived into the world of geometric measure theory. What I learned personally and was interesting was that geometric measure theory is actually composed of basically two types. There are two flavors of it. Some people do geometry of sets, like projections, exceptional sets, and Hausdorff dimensions and things like that, without ever having to deal with minimal surfaces or calculus of variations. And that's one brand of geometric measure theory. On the other hand, there are people who are completely focused on minimal surfaces, their regularity, sharp results in there. And those people are doing a different type of geometric measure theory. Of course, they relate to each other and they borrow from each other. But technically, it was very helpful for me personally to understand this distinction, because until then, I would look at two researchers who both claim they're doing geometric measure theory, and I would see no complete overlap between the two. Okay, and after geometric measure theory, we switched to metric space analysis. With metric space analysis, what is meant is functions defined from a metric space to R or to other Banach space. And the goal is to develop Sobolev functions and PDEs and potential theory on them. And there has been huge success in this area pretty recently, based compared to mathematics history. They can be regarded as cutting edge developments. And here, my list here doesn't represent it accurately. There's actually two parts to it. So in the first part, I go over doubling measure spaces, talk about why Lebesgue differentiation theorem still holds, talk about Riesz potential, Lipschitz functions, high-wash Sobolev classes. This is the part where you don't need any Poincare inequality. But in a second part, I go over development of Newtonian Sobolev functions through the notion of upper gradients. And very recently, the current ongoing topic at Young Measures is Heisenberg groups. The difficulty I realized was Heisenberg group has a lot of structures. So it is a sub-Riemannian manifold, it is a Lie group, it's a Carnot group. And to me, they were so intertwined, I couldn't tell one from another. And preparing these notes, I came up with the idea that we can actually study the sub-Riemannian structure of Heisenberg group before talking about its group structure at all. So it's just R3 with a certain way of defining a metric. And then I have been trying to deduce lots of properties of that distance and metric, with avoiding the group multiplication per se. And I think in the next one or two videos, we will be done with complete construction of the metric, talk about its geodesics. And so that is a summary of 3 years of lectures at Young Measures. So please subscribe to the channel to keep supporting me and be notified of most recent updates.